This is Paul McKenna for PT Boxing. I'm here down at Leeds today with me, David Diamante. How are you, mate? Okay?
Yeah, good to see you, Paul.
Thank you. Obviously here for Josh Warrington. Rematch with Mauricio Lara Saturday night. 19,000 fans back in the stadium. From your perspective, obviously it's different to a fighter's perspective because you're the MC on the night. How much better is it, David, with them fans in the stadium?
No, it's not even. You can't even compare it. You can't even compare it. I'll just tell you this. Many years ago, 1988, I think it was, I started DJing at a radio station. I hated it. And the reason is because I was in a studio. There's no people. Now, people would call up, people would send, and that was cool, but there was no live. Many years later, I became a DJ in nightclubs, and I loved it. So I live for that live crowd. I love it. So for me, there's not even a difference. It changes everything. Even fight camp, a few weeks back. It was
like a little taste, wasn't it, of having
a just a little taste. But I mean, we've had some big crowds since the COVID. I mean, we had the massive crowd for Canelo in Dallas. We had 1,000 for AJ and Pulev at Wembley, which was a small crowd compared to 20,000. What's going to be on Saturday? But they were loud. They were loud. But Headingley's going to be over the top.
I haven't done my research, but have you done a Leeds crowd before? Have you done a Leeds event before?
I haven't. I've been to Leeds, but I've never spent time here. So I'm really excited to be here. It's a great city. People are wonderful, salt of the earth, and Sean O'Hagan, Josh's dad's taking me out for a chippy later. Okay. So he's going to show me the spots, and it's going to be great.
Well, for the years that I've been in the boxing, and I've been to a lot of events over the years in the UK, Leeds is definitely one of the best atmospheres for sure, top three. So I'd be interested to see what your opinion is after Saturday night when I next catch up with you and see how it compares to other cities.
But don't forget, October 9th, we're going to be in your city, Liverpool, for Fowler Smith.
Yep.
Smith Fowler. It's going to be an amazing fight, and that'll be an amazing atmosphere.
Definitely. David, in terms of yourself, I just want to know a few things about you. First question I've got for you is, from all the events you've done in your career so far, what would you say is the best atmosphere, or just the best, the most electric, the presence that you get from being in the stadium? Would there be a Canelo one, for example, or?
It's hard to say. There have been so many. There really have been a lot, and doing Ritson fights up in Newcastle, or whether it's fights at the Garden, doing Gassiev Usyk in Moscow at the Olympic Stadium. In Latvia, doing Midas Bridas, doing world title fights in Mexico. Wow, in Mexico City, in Texcoco, in Hermosillo, in Tijuana, in Sonora. The fight in Guadalajara just recently, the Martinez fight, amazing. Okay. So many great fights. I've done fights in Argentina and Uruguay. There's been great fans, great atmospheres. It's just hard to say what's the best.
Okay, well, is there any way that surprised you then, that maybe you wasn't anticipating it being as crazy as it was, or as wild as it was?
What's great about boxing, one of the things I love about this sport so much, there's an old saying, styles make fights. Everyone knows that saying, right? And it's a very true saying. That's why people say it. If you understand what it means, it's very true. Styles make fights. That being said, I've always said, you never know. It's like a Forrest Gump situation. Life is like a box of chocolates. You open it up, you never know what you're going to get. And it's true. You bite in, you might get caramel, you might get that cherry cordial. So you're not really sure. And even though we know styles make fights, we don't know what we're going to get. Sometimes those fights exceed your expectations. Wow, you get a cracker, you get a fight that's just epic. And when that happens, the crowd typically knows what they're seeing. Especially here in the UK, it's one of the reasons why I love UK fans. They're very learned, and they follow the sport, they follow the fighters, they back their fighters, and they're passionate. They're passionate about their city, they're passionate about different fighters, and they'll also hold people to task, and I love that. If people, let's say lose a fight, that they think that they, if they want a fight that they think they lost, they'll say it. They're really honest, and I really appreciate that about the fans here. I love fans that know the sport, and I feel like the UK is some of the best for that. And so there have been a lot of great fights that we've seen over here, and the crowd is they come alive. When they're seeing something special, they come alive. So there's been quite a few of those. For sure.
Just two more before I let you go, David. In terms of yourself again now, how does it feel for you now being a household name in the sport? That obviously, for anybody who's a boxing fanatic and a purist, that's grew up watching the fights and seeing Michael Buffer and Jimmy Lennon Jr. and so on. How does it feel like you're now up there with these guys, and you're as much as a part of it as anybody else. Do you know what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I'm honored to be a part of this sport, and Jimmy and Michael are both great friends of mine, incredible guys. But, I've given a very large part of my life to the sport. I love this sport, and I've been touting it for a long time. And sometimes the sport can stink, it can smell, And we've seen some things recently that I know a lot of fans are unhappy about. It's not really my job to talk about it, but it's there, and we all know it, right? It's a 500-pound gorilla in the room. Sometimes there's some trash and it stinks. But either way, I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I love this sport. I love so much what it does for the culture, for the people. It changes a lot of people's lives, and I know it's hurt people. It's also hurt people. That's anything, but it's helped so many people, and I believe it's the best sport in the world for me.
Sure.
It's my favorite sport, always has been, and there's nothing like it. And I love fighters. I have a soft spot for them, and I love what they do. And when you know these fighters' plights, their trajectories, their backstories, and you know what they're going through going into these fights, it means so much. And it's one of the things that I just hope we get out there more, so more fans can really follow these fights, because I can't tell you how many people I talk to, sports fans, and they're like, oh yeah, boxing this, boxing that, oh yeah, well I used to watch when Mike Tyson, you always hear that. Everyone, oh well, Mike Tyson, and there's just so many great fights that are happening. You just look at this card this weekend, there's just some really great fights.
What was it that got you into the sport? Who was it around that time where you really got invested in?
Easy. That's easy. The Four Kings. And Sugar Ray Leonard was, the Four Kings. That was the era that I came up in. And so as a kid, my dad was into the sport. My whole family was kind of into the sport, the men in the family. But when I came up, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler, those guys, those were the guys.
What a good era to come up in.
It was a great era. Yeah, I was hooked.
Before my time, but I've watched a lot of tape.
I was hooked. And then it just grew from there. But sometimes I think I talk about the fans, but I think that the boxing fans are some of the most knowledgeable fans out there, because in order to know boxing, you kind of have to go after it, right? Even like DAZN, it's an app. You have to pay for it. You have to go out and you have to watch it. Sky, you have to go out and watch it. It's a lot of these fights are pay-per-view. You have to pay for it. So you're not going to see it on, where like a football match or a basketball match.
You've got to be invested in boxing more than
you got to be
sports,
more invested in it, and a lot of people are not into it, and that's okay. It's not for everybody, but I believe it's a sport of kings. I believe it's the best sport in the world.
Okay, David. Well, on that note, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely.
I'm sure I'll catch you again soon.
Real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.